In this lesson, I'm going to walk you through a full reading passage 2, and I'm going to show you how to answer every single question and how to avoid common mistakes. So let's get started with our passage 2. So as you can see, we've got the passage 2 on the screen right now. Okay, reading passage 2. You should spend about 20 minutes on questions 14 to 26, which are based on reading passage 2 below. Now, this passage here is called Living with Brain-Computer Interfaces. Now, we don't have to read the subheading, we can or skim the passage. We can just go straight down to the questions. And that's what we'll do for the purposes of this video. So as you can see, the first set of questions will be multiple choice. Questions 14 to 19. Choose the correct letter, A, B, C, or D. Okay, pretty simple. Now, something to note here is that it says correct letter, okay? So you only need to choose one letter. Write the correct letter in boxes 14 to 19 on your answer sheet. So let's have a look at the first question. 14. What point does the writer make about BCIs in the first paragraph? Now, whenever you get something like this, first paragraph, it's fantastic because we know exactly where to look to find the answer. Now, you can have a quick look at the options if you want. It's really up to you. And that's what we'll quickly do right here. BCIs are mainly used in non-medical settings today. That's important, that word today. Some researchers believe BCIs might replace human memory. BCIs are not expected to develop beyond or past their current medical roles, and BCIs could have a much wider range of future applications. Now, you don't have to do that every time. For me, if I was doing the test, I would just go straight to the paragraph itself and try to find the answer. And that's what we'll do right now. Now, remember, the question was about the first paragraph. So let's have a look and see what the writer is talking about. So this has been the decade of neurotechnology. Okay, neuro is talking about the brain with one breakthrough after another. A brain implant that allows, okay, so it's just giving an example of what is happening. That's already been done. So what comes next? Future. So far, impressive achievements like these fall under the category of, okay, so there's that acronym BCI, or brain-computer interfaces, designed to assist people with severe physical limitations, okay? But many researchers believe such limited applications are only the beginning, or it's just getting started. Within a few decades, okay, that's talking about the future, we may see BCIs used not just for therapy, but for enhancing memory. Now, remember, one of the options said replacing memory. So that's similar, but not the same. And even communication between minds. So let's go back down to the multiple choice question now, and we'll choose the best option. So mainly used in non-medical settings. Well, no, it doesn't say mainly used, so we can cross that one off. Some researchers believe BCIs may replace human memory. Well, again, no, we talked about that one. They might enhance human memory, but it doesn't say replace. That's the key thing. BCIs are not expected to develop. Well, no, that's not true. It was talking about they will probably develop and get better. BCIs could have a wider range of future applications. Yes, that is exactly what it was talking about. So D is the correct answer there. Let's move on to the next question, which is question 15. What is the writer doing in the second paragraph? So again, the question is telling us exactly where to look, which is fantastic. So we'll just quickly have a look at the options one more time. Comparing BCIs to other tools, okay? Explaining why BCIs may be able to perform better than the human brain. Outlining the physical structure of the brain. Questioning how effective BCIs will be. All right, so let's go up to the second paragraph and we'll see what the writer is saying. So here it is. There's little reason to believe progress will end there. Okay, so he's saying that there will be further development with these BCIs. Brain-computer interfaces could overcome many of the limits of human thinking. Okay, our brains process information slowly, rely on tissue, and are powered by the energy of a light bulb, so not much energy. Their size is limited. It's astonishing or amazing what they achieve despite this, but our natural cognition may be as far from its potential as early radios are from modern smartphones. So it's making a comparison there. So let's go back down and we'll have a look at the options again. So comparing BCIs to other tools used for communication. Well, no, it doesn't talk about that, so we can cross that out. Now let's look at B, explaining why BCIs may be able to perform better than the human brain. Well, yes, that looks good. It did talk about that, outlining the physical structure and function of the brain. Well, yes, it did talk about that a little bit, but the question is, what is the writer doing in the second paragraph, the whole paragraph, not just one sentence? So C is not the answer there. And the last one, D, questioning how effective our BCIs will be in practice. Well, there was nothing about that there. It didn't talk about in practice or in real settings. So let's move on to the next question now, 16. Why does the writer refer to the myth of Icarus? So again, whenever you get something like this, it's fantastic because you can't paraphrase it. Okay, Icarus is a name, so it's going to be probably impossible to paraphrase it. So it should be very easy to find in the text itself. So to explain why ancient myths are relevant to modern science, to show that good intentions can have bad outcomes or negative outcomes, society can fear bold innovation or brave innovation, to warn against ignoring expert advice. Okay, let's see if we can find Icarus. So we'll start from where we finished, up here. Once BCIs, okay. Now, when you're looking for something very specific, you can just read very, very quickly because you don't need to understand what you're reading. You just, there we go. You just need to find what you're looking for, and we found it right here. Okay, Icarus. So let's read about Icarus very quickly. So history offers plenty of tales or stories about innovation gone wrong. So Icarus, who flew too close to the sun, our boldest ambitions or our biggest goals may carry dangerous unintended costs, even when the original goal seemed entirely beneficial. So it looks like it's talking about this here, that there may be negative effects or bad things that might happen, even when the original goal could be beneficial or it could be a good thing. And I remember one of the options said something about that, and I believe it was B. So let's go back down and we'll see if we can get the answer. So A, to explain why ancient myths remain relevant to modern science. Well, no, it doesn't. That's not why he's talking about that. So we can cross that off. B, to show that good intentions can lead to negative outcomes. That looks really good. To suggest that society often fears bold innovation. Well, no, it didn't say often fears. It did talk about this, but it didn't say often fears. Okay, and that's why you've got to read every single word really, really carefully. And finally, cross out C. And D, to warn against ignoring expert advice. Well, no, it doesn't say anything about that, so we can cross off D. So the answer for 16 is definitely B. Let's move on now and look at 17. So, what difficulty is highlighted by the writer in the fourth paragraph? Okay, fantastic. Again, okay, we know exactly where to look. So let's quickly have a look at the options. Choosing the values that BCIs should follow. Okay, encouraging people to treat each other fairly. Using BCIs to benefit all life. Making sure BCIs are more ethical than humans. So let's go back up and we'll find that fourth paragraph. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So here it is. So we need to build brain-computer interfaces that are beneficial. Okay, so they're good, not just powerful, but aligned with human values. So that could be important. Now let's keep reading. This is not as simple as it sounds. We ourselves are far from consistent. If you're far from consistent, that means you're not always doing the same thing. So that means we're not always treating others in the same way. So we often act with bias or cruelty when you're not very nice, or neglect when you don't follow your duties. So if future BCIs begin to shape and they inherit our worst or the worst of our tendencies or the bad things about human character, the consequences could be severe. Rather than elevating humanity, we could end up reinforcing the flaws that technology was meant to overcome. So it looks like this paragraph is talking mainly about choosing the correct values here, because it's saying that sometimes we're not very nice as humans. Sometimes we don't do very nice things. And if these BCIs, if they get some of our bad characteristics, well, this could be, the consequences could be very severe. There could be big problems. So let's go down and we'll find the correct answer. So 17, here it is. Choosing the values that BCI should be programmed to follow. Yes, that looks like what the writer was talking about. B, encouraging people to treat each other more fairly. Well, no, it doesn't talk about that. Using BCIs to benefit all life on the planet. Well, no, doesn't talk about that. Making sure BCIs are more ethical than humans currently are. Well, no, it doesn't talk about that. So we can cross that one off as well. So 417, the answer is A. Let's move on to 18 now, which says, what does the writer suggest about the future role of BCIs in the fifth paragraph? Okay, fantastic. Again, we know exactly where to look. BCIs will need to be designed with safety in mind. It's not clear how people will react to BCIs or how maybe they'll feel about BCIs. BCIs might help people make better decisions, okay? Some people may not want to be guided by BCIs, or they might not want to follow BCIs or the decisions of BCIs. So let's go back and we'll find that fifth paragraph and we'll see what it is saying. So just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here it is here. To keep us safe, I remember something about safe. BCIs must be ethically advanced as well as intelligent. They should aim for our highest moral ideas, not our worst instincts. So what that is saying is that they should take the best things from humans and not take the bad things from humans. Fortunately, they may be capable of this. Now, when it says they, okay, they is just talking about the BCIs. Okay, that's an example of referencing. Okay, because we've talked about BCIs, and instead of saying BCIs again, we just simply say they. Now let's keep reading. It says, if these systems can tell the difference between right and wrong, they might be better than humans at understanding what is good and could help us make better choices. I believe that's what one of the options was. It said something, I can't remember, but something about improving, something to do with humans. So that could be the answer. Now, and we'll also keep in mind safe, because I remember something about safe as well. So let's go back down and we'll have a look at the options for number 18. So BCIs will need to be designed with safety in mind. Well, yes, it does talk about safety, but it doesn't say they'll need to be designed. Let's just quickly double check. And this is what you should do in the real reading test. If you're not sure, quickly go back up and have a look. So look what it says. It says to keep us safe, okay? To keep us safe, to keep people safe. BCIs must be advanced and intelligent. So let's just go down. Designed with safety in mind. Well, no, it doesn't say that, okay? That is a distractor. Sorry, that is a distractor. B, it is not clear how people will react to BCIs. Well, no, it doesn't say that. C, BCIs might help people make better decisions. Yes, it did definitely talk about that. Some people may not want to be guided by BCIs. Well, no, didn't talk about that. And look at the last one now, number 19. Which of the following best describes the writer's argument in the 6th paragraph? Okay, again, we know exactly where to look. Fantastic. So let's look at A. BCIs will be hard to program because they're very complex, okay? Most people will disagree on how BCIs should be used. Human flaws or human negatives, the bad things about humans, make it harder to create the right kind of BCIs, okay? BCIs will not understand instructions unless they're given by experts. So let's go up and we'll find that 6th paragraph. And again, always just count again, just to make sure you're looking at the right paragraph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here it is. However, so 2 major challenges stand in the way. Okay, one is how we guide BCIs. The other, understanding what reaching the intended goal would look like. The first issue, okay, so this is probably what we're looking for. The first issue lies in giving BCIs instructions that are clear and meaningful. Now, if you remember, one of the options talked about instructions, so we'll just keep that in mind. Clear enough, even if we don't understand it ourselves. This is difficult, especially since humans are divided about what truly matters. If humans are divided about something, that means they can't agree or they don't agree on a certain issue or topic. We regularly overlook suffering and we act selfishly, so we think about ourselves only. So how can we direct a machine towards something better when we struggle to define it ourselves? So this one looks like it's saying that, humans sometimes can be not very nice. Okay, we overlook suffering. We don't care about suffering. We act selfishly. So if we're not perfect, how are we going to make a machine better? How are we going to tell the machine what to do? So let's go back down, considering what we've just talked about, and we'll decide on the correct answer. So BCIs will be hard to program because they are so complex. Well, it does sort of talk about hard to program, but it's not talking about being complex, because the issue was that we as humans are not perfect. So A can be removed. The next one was most people will disagree on how BCIs should be used. Well, no, it doesn't talk about that. It does say we're divided, but it doesn't say people will be or will disagree on how they should be used. Human flaws make it harder to create the right kind of BCIs. Yes, that looks good. Okay, because remember we talked about that word flaw. If something is flawed or if something has a flaw, it means that something is not perfect. There is something not good about that thing. And finally, D, BCIs will not understand instructions unless they are given by experts. Well, it did talk about instructions, but it didn't say anything about unless they are given by experts. So D is not correct. So for 19, option C would be the correct answer. So they were the multiple choice questions. Let's go down now and we'll look at the second set of questions, which appear to be yes, no, and not given questions. So let's have a read of these questions. Questions 20 to 23. Do the following statements agree with the claims of the writer in reading passage 2? Now, this is really important where it says claims of the writer, because it's asking about the opinion of the writer. It doesn't matter what we think or how we feel, okay? It's all about the claims of the writer, okay? Not our opinion. Let's keep reading. In boxes 20 to 23, right. So the first one is yes, if the statement agrees with the claims of the writer. Right, no, if the statement contradicts the claims of the writer. And finally, right, not given, if it's impossible to say what the writer thinks about that statement or that issue. So let's have a look at the first question now, which is question number 20. BCIs could prevent people from showing preference for their own social group. So whenever you're doing these types of questions, you should always think about the overall meaning of the statement and try to think about synonyms and try to paraphrase certain words. But obviously you need to do this quickly. You shouldn't sit there for a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes thinking about synonyms. You should just do it very quickly in your head. So I'll give you an example. When I see the word prevent, the first word that comes into my mind is stop. Okay, so BCIs could stop people from showing or displaying. Okay, you need to be thinking about synonyms and different ways to say the same thing. So let's go back up and we'll see if we can find the answer. Now, social group looks like it's going to be a very important word. So let's see if we can find that in the passage. So we'll start from where we finished, which was here. The second challenge involves what it might mean. Okay, if we begin, we may give up some of our independence. That could be important. Give up some of our independence. A system that consistently follows ethical principles could limit, okay, begin limiting choices we currently take for granted. Now, if you take something for granted, that means you think that it will always be there. We often use this phrase with health. We say, don't take your health for granted. So that means don't think your health will always be there. Why do we say this? Well, it's because if you don't look after your health, if you don't take after your body, well, you might get sick. Something bad might happen. So, such as favoring our own social group. There we go, social group. If those choices are judged to conflict or be different, okay, if things conflict, they're different with broader ideas of fairness or equality. So it looks like it's saying there, these systems or our system could limit, okay, or maybe prevent certain choices like favoring our own social group or choosing our own social group over other social groups. So it looks like this one is definitely yes, but we'll quickly go down and just double check. So BCIs could prevent people from showing preference for their own social group. Yeah, the answer is definitely yes there. So let's move on to 21. Neural overseers are already being used to control people's behavior in some countries. So whenever you see something like this that can't probably be paraphrased, that's great because it's going to be quite easy to find in the text. Now let's just quickly look at those keywords again. Okay, control people's behavior in some countries. All right, so let's go back up and we'll see if we can find those neural overseers that the question mentioned. So we'll start here from where we found the last answer. Giving up the freedom to act, banning child labor, okay? Are we ready to let machines, okay, that should be in the future. In the future, we may be guided. There we go. Neural overseers, okay? BCIs that influence behavior so subtly we barely notice. Yet most people are unlikely to embrace a world, okay, by such systems. These ideas may be distant, but in some ways they are already becoming reality. In Germany, okay, so here's one country. BCIs have been introduced in rehabilitation centers to help stroke patients regain control of speech or movement. Okay, so this is interesting because it does talk about BCIs. It does talk about a country, but remember the question said control behavior. Well, this example here with Germany, no behavior is being controlled. It is helping people regain control of speech or get back their movement. So it looks like this one is not given because we don't know. We don't know if neural overseers are currently being used to control behavior. Okay, remember that word control was a really important word. So neural overseers are already being used to control people's behavior. Yeah, so the answer there must be not given, okay, because we don't know. And yes, it does talk about Germany, but it doesn't say control. Okay, that's the key point there. All right, let's move on to 22. Now, 22 says, many people are comfortable with the idea of machines having control over their behavior. Well, I believe I remember seeing something about this. But yeah, just back to the keywords. Okay, many people having control over their behavior. So let's go back up and we'll see if we can find where that was located. So we'll start here from where we found the neural overseers. BCIs that influence behavior so subtly we barely notice. Yet most people, there we go, most people are unlikely to embrace or to accept a world shaped quietly by such systems. Well, that looks like the answer will be no. Okay, so let's go back and just double check. Many people are comfortable. Well, no, it says the opposite. Okay, it says the opposite in that last sentence there. Let's move on to the final question here. 23, making sure this new technology helps us will require people to work together. So let's go back up and see if we can find that. Okay, this new technology helping us work together or cooperate or collaborate. So let's go back up and we'll see if we can find it. So we'll start from where we found the last answer, which was here. So these ideas seem distant. Okay, Germany, if their role expands, might reduce control. We would need to clearly define. Okay, nothing about new technology and working together. We're now faced with a powerful, emerging technology that has a similar meaning to new technology, not the same, but similar. To ensure it serves us well, we must guide. Okay, to ensure that it helps us, we must guide its development with care and purpose. Whether it's truly achievable remains uncertain, but if it is, it will depend on, cooperation and a willingness to look beyond personal gain. So it's talking about, or the statement was talking about a new technology. And remember, it talked about benefiting us. And it also talked about working together. And that's what I can see right here, that cooperation. So it looks pretty good. It looks like the answer there will be yes, but we'll just quickly double check. Making sure this new technology helps us will require people to work together. Yes, the answer there is definitely yes. So they were the yes, no, and not given questions. We've still got a few questions left. So let's go down and have a look. Here they are. Questions 24 to 26. Complete the summary using the list of phrases A to F below. Write the correct letter A to F in boxes 24 to 26 on your answer sheet. Okay, so really important, write the correct letter. You don't need to write the actual phrase itself. So what we need to do is we need to have a look at these phrases here, and then we need to choose the correct one for each of these blanks here. So to do that, we need to use the skill of paraphrasing, and let me show you what I mean. Now, the first thing we need to do is read the title, because that's going to help us to know where to look in the actual passage. Now, the title says BCIs in the German healthcare system, and you should already know exactly where that was, because remember, we looked at this example of the BCIs being used in a German, I can't remember, a hospital or something to help patients. Okay, so it's probably going to be in that same area. So let's have a look at the first question. Okay, BCIs are already playing a part in something to help patients recover. So we need to find, where are they playing a part? So let's go back up and we'll see if we can find where that was. There it is, right here. Okay, I've even circled it already. Okay, Germany. So let's have a look what it says. They are already becoming reality in Germany. BCIs have been introduced in rehabilitation centers. So where are they playing a part? In rehabilitation centers. So now we need to think of a paraphrase for that. And one paraphrase I can think of is a hospital. Another one could be a medical clinic. So now we know where they're playing a part. We can come back down and have a look at the choices. So we should look at all of them just to double check. First one, decision power. No. Medical costs. No. Public perception. No. Recovery clinics. Yes, that's another way to talk about what we read. Computer experts. No. Healthcare providers. No. So the answer there would definitely be D. So we can cross that off. Now let's keep reading. The advantage of using BCIs, okay, could complete some tasks more efficiently. Fair enough. However, a change like this may lead to, okay, so we're looking for the effect. Certain something no longer having the same level of. So we might be able to do these two together. Okay, so we're looking for certain something not having the same level of something. So let's go back up and we'll see if we can find the effect of this change. Okay, remember, we're looking for this change here. So let's go back up and we'll see what we can find. So here it is. If their role expands, okay, they could perform some tasks more efficiently. Okay, we already read something about that, benefiting the patients and healthcare systems. Okay, great. However, doing so might reduce the control. So that might be the second answer that we're looking for. Let's keep going. It says doctors or caregivers currently hold in the system. Okay. So it looks like it's saying control is going to go down, and who is going to have less control? Well, it's doctors and caregivers. So we need to think of another way to say doctors or caregivers. And maybe you could say something like medical practitioners. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. And when it comes to control, maybe that's about the decisions or the authority or the power that these doctors and caregivers have. So let's go back down and we'll see if we can choose the best phrase there. So a change like this may lead to certain something. So let's have a look at the answers. Decision power, no. Medical costs, no. Public perception, no. Computer experts, no. It wasn't talking about computer experts. Healthcare providers, that looks fantastic. So we'll put that in there. F, cross that off. So healthcare providers no longer having the same level of, let's look at the first one, decision power. Yeah, that's what we talked about or thought of. So that looks good. Medical costs, no. Public perception, no. Computer experts, no. So the answer there would definitely be A, and we can cross that off. So just remember, when you're doing summary completion questions like this, always go up to the passage, have a read, try and paraphrase it in your own words first, then come down and have a look at these options here. Now, please note, some of the time you may be able to guess the answer, even if you don't read the passage. So if you don't have much time, just try and guess and choose the option that would fit best in each of the questions. So that was the second passage for test 2. Passage 3 will be linked right here when it's ready, or alternatively, you can check out passage 1 right here. Thanks for watching, take care, and see you in the next lesson.